Joker Folie bombed, and it bombed hard, and I'm here for it. I'm going to tell you why momentarily, but first, I'm Lion Runner from Reviews and Revisits both on YouTube and on Instagram. The Instagram link will be down in the description, and we'll get into
Please
this.
like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Please take a moment to help me out here, help me move through the algorithm. I'd appreciate it. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification. Thanks.
We're going to do a deep dive into why this movie bombed so hard and explore the fallout from it. Before that, though, I want to tell you my impressions of the first Joker movie, partially to set the stage from where I'm coming from. The first Joker movie, I have to say, I loved it. I did not go see it at the time it came out in the theaters. At that time, I just wasn't really checking. Really, I wasn't checking for anything DC because their movies have been pretty much disappointing to me, not of interest. I don't like what they did with with the Snyderverse and Zack Snyder and the whole direction of it. Man of Steel was pretty good, but generally, and I like Wonder Woman, the first one. Who likes Wonder Woman 1984? But yeah, this just wasn't on my radar. Whatever I was doing in my life in 2019, I wasn't checking for this at the time. Wasn't worried about it, and I was on a flight coming back from Africa, I guess in 2021. 2022. Got to see it over the Pacific Ocean, I believe, when I was watching it, and enjoyed it immensely. What I found the film to be more so than people like to reference a lot of Taxi Driver, some other movies it's supposed to be taken from. Tell you the truth, I think Taxi Driver is pretty boring through most of the movie. I mean, it has a great setup, has a good ending, it has some memorable parts, but through and through most of the movie, it's pretty boring. I actually found Joker to be a great character study in the devolution of an individual person's mentality, and that's why I like it so much. A lot of talk about all kinds of things about who the fans of the original Joker of this particular universe, the original Joker film. A lot of discussion about who these fans are and their people who associate with the alt right or they're with Trumpyism or they wanted to they were going to be the people who are disaffected males, and particularly disaffected white males who are going to go riot in the street when they saw the movie, which was always stupid. Anybody ever thought that was an idiot? And furthermore, the ideal that there is one particular kind of person who resonates with this movie, and they're this prescribed group that some other group of fans who don't, for whatever reason, want to resonate with the film. They don't want to. Uh, they see the the working class or people who are disaffected with society as some kind of undesirable, so they have a political motive to have not liked the original film. And a lot of the critics gave it poor reviews. It only was around like 69% or Rotten Tomatoes, something of that nature. That is a political purview and agenda, and it's not anything rooted in reality. Uh, I like the film because I like movies with depth and the use of color. The the movie had a definitive plot. Again, I always say on here, I'm all about the plot and the storyline and what all that is. But most importantly, I enjoyed the character arc and character development, or the opposite of it, the character developing in Arthur. But his de-evolution is devolving of his psyche, and a real in-depth examination of that and how that plays out. And I think it did it in a very entertaining and engaging way, whereas Taxi Driver is very slow and just drudging, and it's like I say that Scorsese took a page out of the book of what is his name? I'm trying to think of the guy who did Space Odyssey 2001, and he also did the movie with Jack Nicholas in it as well. And I'm drawing blanks on everything as I tend to do. Thinking of Stanley Kubrick, and so that's that. But I really found Joker to be really engaging, have a lot of depth, have a lot of layers, and then putting it in, having it in the Batman world, getting a view of Joker. I know there are a lot of comic book fans who don't like it because he's not some version of Joker they expected, and they came up with this notion that, well, this is the smart, cunning, crafty Joker. This is a guy with a kind of a weak mind state and a weak mind frame or whatever have you. But who is to say that this couldn't have been the origin, and then once he is freed at the end of original Joker, that he doesn't go on to go under. Once he goes underground, that he develops into the Joker that you know later on. Once he's the nemesis of Batman. In this movie, Batman doesn't exist yet. Bruce Wayne is a kid. So who's to say in the next 20 years before Bruce Wayne becomes Batman that this can't be the guy who becomes that Joker? Well, we now know with things that happen in this new movie that that's not the case. But uh, what I want to talk about here in this anatomy of a box office bomb is not a review of Joker Folie. It is a assessment of the bombing at the box office, the disappointment of the fandom, and the fallout therefrom that we want to get into. So I did not see this movie. I'm part of the people who made sure that it bombed because I didn't find it worth me going to see. It's not worth my money for them to put together a movie that you had a fandom that you built to where you got $1 billion movie out of something that was not highly anticipated. It was the biggest movie out of all of the modern DC movies. Basically the biggest DC movie ever, because what movie did more? I don't know, maybe adjusted for inflation. One of the older Batman movies. I forgot. I guess there was one of the Batman movie that was done by thinking about Christopher Nolan in The Dark Knight, and it only did $500 million, and even just adjusted for inflation doesn't come close to the Joker. And I think that's the second highest grossing DC film of all time. So this blew everything out of the water. So you have an established fan base, and then you take what people liked about the film, and again, we have what modern filmmakers want to do is to always deconstruct what fandom likes. We're not paying you to deconstruct what we like. We're paying you to give us what we like. Now, if you want to be an artiste and do your art, and I don't care what the fans think, that's fine, but you get what you get. And what is also fine is that we don't have to spend our money with these people who want to take the fandom and deconstruct it. You did something different with the Joker, Todd Phillips, and most of us went for it. Again, you have comic book fans who saying this isn't our Joker, but for the most part, they still liked it and they spent their money on it at least once to go see it. And a lot of those same ones who complained about it went and saw it twice because they still enjoyed it as a movie. They saw it maybe not as a real Joker movie, but still a good movie. A lot of people thought it was a great movie. I put it as one of my top 4 or 5 movies of the last decade. All right, so that's what I think about it. And so we're coming from that standpoint. We're not looking to have you deconstruct what we enjoyed. What we wanted to see was a movie that would continue on the path of the story of that Joker. And from the time that that Joker 2 was announced, especially since Todd Phillips originally said he wasn't interested in doing the second one, Joaquin Phoenix being how he is, you knew that he's kind of off the rails. He's the same kind of I'm an artiste kind of guy and just does whatever. You knew that he really probably wouldn't want to revisit the character because, it's not a new artistic challenge for him. But Warner Brothers rolled out the financial carpet for them. They backed up the Brinks truck and dropped $20 million on each of them, and they changed their tune. And that was probably the first problem, because there wasn't a movie that was going to be made that was coming from an inspired story. Todd Phillips made the original one. He had an inspiration to do a particular film. The movie was based on being inspired to do something in particular that he had an interest to do. He had no interest in doing a second movie. He made that clear right after the first one. So he had no story. He had no next anything in mind. He his creative juices weren't induced to want to do something in particular. He didn't have a story. But once the brink truck was backed up, then it was like contrive something, and that's what he did. And I feel like what Warner Brothers should have done was, knowing that Phillips wasn't really interested, they should have looked for somebody who had another story. And I'm going to get into what I think that story could have been, but they should have looked for another writer who was inspired by the original Joker movie to, to take from that movie and move forward with it. Todd Phillips is a writer, but not really. He's really a director, like Scorsese, for instance, who is a filmmaker, so he also writes, but he's primarily a director. That's why he writes and he produces and he directs. But because he's a filmmaker, but his primary thing is to cast the vision of the film. He has an ideal about what he wants to do, but he always has a writing partner, and I believe Todd Phillips did also for both of these Joker movies, because what these guys are really about is having an ideal of what they want to do with the film, but they're not in the weeds of coming up with every line and really constructing a full-length script. They have certain things that they know they want to be in there. They might have certain ideals. They might even come up with particular lines of dialogue, but crafting all of that point by point, milestone by milestone, isn't their point. Their point is to set the vision, set the milestones, and then they really need a writer to come in and fill it all in and to really bring it on home. And that's why those kinds of guys work with writing partners. And Todd Phillips has directed movies that he didn't write. He doesn't have to be the writer to direct a film. So they should have found somebody who was inspired off of the original Joker to write something that would have been a continuation of the same story in the same tone, and we could have seen where is Joker now after he was broken out from the police containment. He's dancing on the car at the end of the last movie. He goes underground and begins to build the villainous Gotham that we know 20 years later once Bruce Wayne becomes Batman. Right now, it's just kind of New York in the 70s type of crime, and that's also what I really liked about the original movie. It kind of puts it in that time frame where New York City, which Gotham is based off of, let's be real about what we're talking about. Gotham is DC's New York City. And in the late 60s, really through the 60s into the 70s, New York went through a very dark time. Financially, they were falling apart. The Bronx was burning down. Downtown New York, Times Square used to be a slush pool of porn shops and prostitution and drug deals and stabbings and shootings, and it was just kind of turned into a wasteland. The city was going bankrupt. Things were falling apart physically as far as the physical infrastructure, and that's kind of where the original Joker was set in. And there was a lot of social unrest and disillusionment, not only in New York but American society in general, with gas prices that were out of this planet, where you had things happening, there's different things happening in the world. The Iranian Revolution and the hostages, and just all kind of Vietnam War and all the discontent. And so that was a good setting of the stage for how Gotham becomes Gotham. And then you could have had where we now pick up where Joker is becoming who he is. They could have even, if they wanted to go with bringing in Harley Quinn and telling kind of a story of him being in jail, and do a little bit of a courtroom drama and how he meets Harley. They should have went with the real Harley Quinn as far as her being his doctor, but they could have kept part of what I saw in the trailer was she was out on the street during the original Joker film when all the rioting was happening, and she throws a brick or something through a shop store window and breaks the glass and takes the TV where they're talking about Arthur and what he's doing. And she became kind of enthralled with him, and you could have still had that as the therapist. So Arthur could have been, say, even recaptured at some point. Maybe he starts to build his underground his underground villainous Gotham and his kind of his cult. He takes the cult following that he had. He starts his crime syndicate, and maybe that's underway. Or maybe he goes on the run at the end of the last movie, and he gets captured right away. They put him in prison, right? He's in an insane asylum within the prison, so you could still have him maybe in. I would think something like. Uh, he wouldn't be in general population, but he also could not be in. He wouldn't be in the hole or solitary confinement necessarily. It could be more of a contained unit of other people who are kind of similarly situated, some child molesters and people with mental illness or whatever, and they're kind of in a sanitarium within the prison. That's where he meets Harley Quinn as his therapist, but she's already devolving herself, and she gets him as a patient, but the administration at the hospital doesn't realize that she's already asphyxiated with him from following what happened in the riots during the first movie, and she's devolving already in her mental mind state. She gets to meet him as her patient, falls in love, devolves into crazy, and maybe she's like the person on the outside. You could have kind of a like a Shawshank Redemption thing going on in the prison yard where he plans his escape, and then like with this lady in real life a few years back who helped the prisoner, she snuck things into the prison to help those guys escape through the manhole on the ground. uh Harley Quinn could have played that role. She helps Joker escape, helps Arthur get out, runs and he runs. They run away together, and they start the third act is police trying to chase them down, but him reigniting his underground syndicate and whatever mayhem you want to ensue, and Joker's off and running, and you kind of just set up almost like the origin of. You had the origin story of Arthur in the first movie. You kind of have the origin story of Arthur and Harley Quinn coming together in the second one, kind of thing. Something like that. You could have even had part of that courtroom drama be part of the second act. I mean, I don't want to sit and watch a whole long courtroom drama. That's why more to the reason why I didn't go see this movie. I'm not going to go see it. Sounds boring for that to be such a mainstay. I understand the movie is basically the prison, him daydreaming about love songs with Harley Quinn, and that's the musical piece, and then it's a courtroom drama. You can still have a piece of the courtroom, like the part where he's cross-examining the little person guy who worked with him in the last movie, who he let out instead of killing. He let him out the door when he couldn't reach the doorknob. That seems like that's an interesting piece. And you could have had the court, once he's arrested, he's in the sanitarium, he's in prison, he goes to court. You could have had the court trial start and had that piece in there, a little bit of that. But then he breaks out one night in between the trial, during the trial. And so you could have kind of gotten all these pieces in. You could have had a little bit of the what the world needs now, and he falls in love. I even heard somebody say, and this was interesting to me, they suggested that what this movie could have been was um, Arthur figuring out that once he connects with Harley Quinn and finds love, that he realized now he has something to live for. So he kind of the way he was despondent in the first movie kind of might change a little something in him to where he maybe feels a little bit different. But that was kind of an interesting way they could have gone. But I think that would distract from what I'm talking about, which would make more sense. Joker fully becoming Joker. This is where he goes into becoming the guy that we will know in the future Batman sagas. That is the crafty, cunning, uber confident villain. And this is where it starts. Even it could be part of the fact that the therapy that he receives from Harley kind of stabilizes his mentality, and the confidence that he gains from the love of Harley sustains him from further devolution of his psyche, and he becomes cemented as the Joker rather than Arthur through that, because then he becomes confident in who he is as Joker, having this ride or die chick with him. And also kind of like you learn from The Sopranos, I believe, kind of the understanding that sociopaths can never benefit from therapy. All it does is strengthen their criminal tendencies, right? Remember, that was kind of the whole thing with Dr. Melfi and her other professionals that she was talking with about her giving therapy to Tony, because they were just saying all you're doing is helping him become a better criminal. You're not helping to cure him. He's not going to get any better. And that could be the same thing that happens here with Harley giving therapy to the Joker, especially with her being enthralled with him. She basically just cements his psyche and gives him the confidence to fully become the Joker that is later known. And then that could have been a movie that people could have gotten behind. But no, did they do that? No. They did this artiste thing. I understand from an article today in one of the publications that there was going to be a same-sex lesbian kiss with Lady Gaga. That was taken out. I guess they tried to recover back. I think they, you can see in the marketing, they tamped down the musical aspect, de-promoted that. They didn't make a big deal of it for what they originally announced. And that was basically, I kind of got off track from where I was going earlier. When the movie first was announced that they were going to do a sequel, I was excited because, yeah, I love what they did with this world with the first movie. But first, I hear, I don't know, sure, would I hear Lady Gaga first or I think I heard both of them at the same time. I found out musical and Lady Gaga. And it's just really crazy. Again, you have an audience that gave you $1 billion success. Do you double back on that and build off of that? No. We're going to go a totally different direction. We're going to do a musical. The audience for this movie is not the musical audience. Sure, there are some people who like that movie who are musical people, but by and large, the largest of the audience is not a musical audience. And the musical audience is not people who care about Joker, comics, this type of movie of the disillusioned male underclass. And it seems that Todd Phillips intentionally wanted to get himself realigned with the critics of the original movie before it came out, who were all on this bandwagon about incels or whoever they decided the people are who like this movie. And he wanted to get back right with them and make sure you understood that you shouldn't like the Joker. I didn't like the movie The Joker because I like who Arthur became. I don't like Arthur. Certainly not as the Joker. Same way I don't like Tony Soprano. I don't like Ray Liotta and company in Goodfellas. I like the characters for their great characterization and the great presentation of the actors in demonstrating these psyches and these people on film, and how the film, and Joker in particular, shows you the psychology. But really, same thing with those other shows and movies of Sopranos, Goodfellas, how they aptly show the psychology of these people and what motivates them and how or why they are who they are. That doesn't mean you side with people like that in real life. And the fact that these critics with their political agenda on a particular side can't understand that, and that Todd Phillips can't understand that, is really a shame. And the problem comes down to, and what I've learned over the years, is that a lot of people who make movies, who make music, when you have an artist who makes a great album, and then the next album is nothing on the same level because all they did was try to make artificial generic hits. They didn't understand why people loved the original. It was because it was something authentic and from the soul. And then the next album is them just trying to hit home runs at every swing with some kind of artificial pop hit, rather than the song having the soul behind it that the original music had on the original album. And you see this often with movies. The sequels are never nearly as good because the person making the movie doesn't understand why the fans loved it. The people creating the art, a lot of times it's almost accidental how that they got the masses to connect with it. They don't even understand or know why their product is loved. And I think that's very clear that Todd Phillips either doesn't understand or didn't like the reasons why people connected with his Joker film. It was what the result wasn't what he intended, and he doesn't get it. And I also think he really didn't care. He wanted to do what he wanted to do, and filled with hubris and a huge $20 million payday, he was going to do what he wanted. And he didn't care what the fans thought. And he's good to take his money and run. The problem is he should have been backstopped by the studio. When he came to them and said, I'm going to do a musical, and I'm going to bring in Lady Gaga, who's the antithesis to a lot of the fan base. I don't particularly have a problem with Lady Gaga. I don't want to. I actually like a little bit of her music, right? I respect her as an artist. I don't like a lot of what she stands for and represents. Um, she's into sadistic stuff, does very sadistic imagery and pushes that, and some other things. I don't care about her politics too much, but I'm not offended by her being in a project, because if she can act, and of course she can sing, then so be it. It's not an issue, but that's me. You've got a large portion of your fan base who are going to have a problem with her. Why would you, out of all the actresses in the world, or all the singers who can act, all the actresses who can sing, and all the singers that can act, why would you go pick the one who is going to be a turnoff to any significant portion of your movie's fan base? Why would you do that when you can go pick somebody else who won't be a turnoff and can do the job just the same? So when he comes to them and says, I'm going to turn a comic book film into a musical, and it's going to be a musical starring Lady Gaga, who's juxtaposed to at least half of the fan base, and especially the fans who are your net promoters. And that's the other thing these people don't understand about comic book movies. Once you've turned off the people who are the core audience of the movie, so they thought that we cast our net was cast wide. We got a broad audience beyond the DC core audience. The DC core audience, you can see from the way other DC movies have sold, is about 400, maybe 500 million at best. At best, it's 500. We just said that with the Dark Knight, the second highest grossing DC film, and most part is 300 to 400 million for most DC movies. That's the core DC audience. So they said, we got $1 billion. That means we had $700 million of other people. So screw the core audience. I'm going to shove it in. I'm going to stick my thumb in their eye, because I, Todd Phillips, don't like them anyway. And I'm not a comic book fan, but I'm probably more aligned with the core audience as far as wanting things to be authentic and being able to enjoy the tenor of what the original Joker was. But what he decided is, I'm going to stick my thumb in the eye of that core audience and go against the grain of what I know they would want, because I got these other $700 million of people who came to my movie. So screw them. I think I could still bank at least $700 million, and that's good if I do that. And what these people again don't understand is, most of the other people go to genre film based on what the people who are really into that genre say first. That's who they listen to. If I'm not into DC Comics, right, and I got a homeboy who's really into it, and he says, oh, that movie's going to be garbage. I've seen the previews. There's nothing about it. It's garbage. And he's really into that stuff, and I'm not. Most people are going to be like, oh, my homeboy said that stuff is garbage. He's into that, and I'm not even into it. I just would kind of go just because, hey, maybe it's going to be a good movie. I'll check it out, but I don't really care about it. The person who cares about it is telling me it sucks. I'm not going. A lot of people went because, it's chicks whose boyfriends are really into this fair. And again, genre movie is male driven. You can do all you want to do to try to make it be female driven, or believe you're going to get parody and audience. You can't force people to watch something they don't want to watch. Genre films are dominated by men. Even Madam Web and the Marvels, who were both made for women and starring cast full of women, and the studio's intent was to drive women audiences by having it be women-driven films. Those movies both had majority male audiences, majority genre-liking audiences, male audiences. The same ones who are the toxic fans, male incels, and toxic male fan base who are review bombing and making the movies tank. No, they're the ones who went to see those movies. Women didn't go see those movies at all. Women didn't support women. That's who abandoned those movies. You're not going to make genre film ever be parody with men and women. It's men who primarily are the audience for that film. You've got some women who really love it, but most women who went to see the Joker went because their boyfriend said, let's go see it. And they're like, okay, fine. And then might have liked it and would have been willing to go back this time. But when they got ready to go and they said, oh, Joker's coming out, honey, Joker's coming out this weekend. We're going, right? Joker 2? He's like, hell no, that's going to suck. She's like, oh, okay. No, I don't, that's fine with me. Let me see what else is playing. That's how that plays out. And the fact is, these studios don't understand that the core audience are their net promoters. You can't go around them because other people go largely based on the hype and the kind of cultural field around the movie that is created by the core audience. Those are your net promoters in business. You have what's called a net promoter score. Those are like the first adopters or early adopters and how well they will promote your product to their cohorts, to their colleagues. It works the same for movies. I don't understand why movie people don't understand this. And your net promoters, your biggest net promoters or demoters are going to be the core audience. You can't thumb your eyes you thumb your finger in the eyes of the core audience of genre film and then think that everybody else is just going to replace them. They're not going to be replaced. What's going to happen is they're going to drag all those people who have marginal interests, they're going to drag their marginal interests down, and nobody's going to go see your movie. Hence the Joker bombing with only $40 million. That was the lie that Warner Brothers told over the weekend to try to put a 4 in the front of the number. Originally, it was going to be announced as it was originally announced as a $39 million movie by the trades. Warner Brothers pushed back and said, no, it's going to be $40 million. This is like Sunday morning when they start projecting what the weekend is going to be total. They have the numbers for Thursday previews, Friday night, Saturday, and they project what the Sunday number is going to be based on that, and then they start doing publishing on Sunday. This happens every weekend with every movie weekend. And so originally the trade said 39 million. Warner Brothers pushed back. They wanted the 4 in front of it and said 40 million. We got the real number today and it's 37 million. Even worse. This is 2/3 of the audience from the $96 million opening of the original Joker said, nah, I'm good. I went to that movie. I enjoyed Joker. I liked it a lot. Nah, I'm not going to this crap because it's not what the audience wanted. And to that point, let me show something. Well, you know what? I talked a long time. Well, we're 33 minutes into this. So I don't know if I will even look at this other item, but yeah, let's get into it. So we have this article from Movie Facts on Instagram. Where am I? How am I not showing up? Okay. Well, it says camera one. I hope I'm showing in the corner on the video, but I don't see myself. And so for Movie Facts on Instagram, and I believe this is her right here because this is the real movie poster. Then she put herself in the poster, so I'm assuming this is a she. She says the movie can be tedious at times. The music and song choices don't work. I agree it's not as good a film, the first one, but it's still entertaining. So somebody points that out down in the comments. She admits that the movie sucks and lists the reasons why, and then tries to save it at the end by claiming it's still entertaining. And as we go through here, we're going to see that her intent is that she wants for this movie to have been good, even though she knows it's not. But she has an agenda to not allow it to be gutted for what it is. Probably because she's probably a Gaga fan and a musical fan, and is a fan of what Todd Phillips was doing and thumbing his nose, his eye, thumbing his putting his finger in the eyes, his thumb in the eyes of the chuds and the incels or whoever they think the fans of the original movie are. So she says, however, to call it the worst comic book movie of all time, absolutely not. It's far from the cookie cutter formulaic mindless content that we often see. I haven't heard one person call it the worst comic book movie of all time. Not one. And most people who say they don't like it say it's okay, but it's an okay movie, but it's so far off. It's such a disappointment relative to what the original movie was, and added no substance. It's just a waste. Like, why is it here? Then she goes, worse than Morbius and Madam Web, with a question mark. Genuinely, as a movie community, I think we need to hang our heads in shame. I'm going to go to my response. Now, I wrote this response while I was in this, while I was in the sauna at the gym this evening. So I'm burning up in between sauna stretches that I do to stretch out my arm and shoulder and stuff, and typing on the little phone, thumbing it. So the my editing wasn't good because you got that little tiny window. I usually actually do stuff on Instagram on the computer most often. So excuse the typing, but you can't really edit on that thing. So I said, I don't know. I don't think we should have an ounce of shame for rejecting a movie we didn't want instead of this corporation and multimillionaire creatives, in quotation marks, sending a product to the market that the customers don't want and demand that we should have to pay for it. Absolutely not. And I have not heard one person say it was worse than Madam Web or Morbius, and I doubt you have either. I've heard the fact stated that it performed worse at the box office opening weekend, which is simply facts. Again, the notion that these people are trying to shame us for not giving a corporation and some bloated multimillionaires, Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix, our money for them to give us crap that we don't want and we didn't ask for is insane and outrageous. And people like this who want to try to shame audiences for not accepting whatever garbage Hollywood throws at us is a joke. A lot of my creators in this space, a lot of my co-creators in this space will say, I hate to see movies fail. I take no joy in the fact that they fail. I take great joy in the fact that these types of movies are continually failing. Why shouldn't we take joy in it? If they succeed, that means we're going to get more garbage. The fact that more and more of them are failing means that there'll be less of these movies that we don't want being thrown at us, like Madam Web and The Joker 2, and more of what we do want. These type of movies failing over the last few years is why you got Deadpool and Wolverine, with Deadpool and Wolverine being who they always were, who the fans want them to be. That wasn't a fantastic movie, but it had a decent enough storyline, and it was great characterization of the characters being who they're supposed to be, instead of them always being deconstructed, like with Logan, like with Han, like with Luke, always having to destroy the legacy characters. Um, what is his name as well? That was played by Harrison Ford. Indiana Jones. Again, every legacy character, if he's a man, he has to be a sad, old, uh, terrible man who left his kids, abandoned his kids. He felt no. Harrison Ford in one movie, one legacy role as Han, he I guess he just abandoned his son. And the next one, he's a sad sack because his son died in Vietnam. He's drinking himself to death. He can't get along with his wife. No man could be anything redeeming. Every man grows old and bitter and is just a sad sack. And you take all of our heroes and you turn them into garbage. And Obi-Wan is a piece of trash now, and a crybaby and a wuss instead of being a knight a brave knight who he always supposed to be. Everybody has to be deconstructed. And because all that garbage failed, that's why you got a Deadpool and Wolverine that wasn't that. And that weren't usurped by a strong boss babe, but could have strong female characters such as the villain, who I thought was a great character in that movie. But she was her own thing that didn't have to take away from Deadpool and Wolverine being who they were. She was even more powerful than the two of them. But that still didn't distract them from being who they were, which is what we get in all these other movies. And so it's a good thing when this garbage fails. Keep making Hollywood fail. Keep making them eat dirt. This movie's going to lose probably $200 million, and I'm so happy about that. Next time around, they'll give us what we want instead of this kind of garbage. Well, I'm out here with this one. Like me up, subscribe, hit the notification, all that good stuff. Again, check out the description for my link to Instagram, where I have my written reviews and other previews of movies and things of that nature in short form videos along with written reviews. I'm Lion Runner 777. We're out with this one.